A while back, I did an episode on the Johnny Silverhand, based on pre-release in-game footage from Cyberpunk 2077, and people seemed to like that episode a lot. Actually, CDPR liked it enough that they altered the in-game appearance of the drink to match the version I came up with, which is both an incredibly high honor, and also, yes, the delays, the bugs, all the rest that has happened since then, it's been my fault. I'm really sorry, guys. Changing that one model really screwed things up, so mea culpa. Now, the Johnny is served at the Afterlife, famous in-world location that's been a fixture of the Cyberpunk role-playing game from the earliest days, back in 1988, when the pen and paper role-playing game was first released. Now that I and you have had some time to play 2077, well, there's another certain someone who needs to get the Afterlife treatment, and spoiler alert, I'm talking about Jackie Wells. So let me put on something just a bit more appropriate, and I'll see you after the jump. I guess I could do a TikTok style too, right? Wait a second, let me see if I can figure out how to do this. In case you're wondering, this is kind of what I wear when we play Cyberpunk Red on Twitch at twitch.tv/Greg from HTD. And this collar, by the way, comes from Starside Armory, which you can check out on Etsy or Instagram. Really cool stuff. It is fully RGB. I've got a little remote here in my pocket, so I can make it green or white or blue or red. It looks probably better in the dark, though. Oh yeah, that's much better. Cyberpunk, baby. So I dropped a little spoiler alert at the beginning, and there's really no way to get around the fact that in order to do this episode, which a lot of you have been asking for, I do need to spoil a plot point of the game, so if you're avoiding that, I don't know what to tell you. This is, of course, a spoiler that will develop in the opening 6-hour prologue of gameplay, and that is that, and spoiler alert, Jackie doesn't make it. It's true. He died as he lived, failing utterly to respect lanes of fire and screening my targets all the way through Arasaka Tower, eating every bullet he could find along the way. Jackie, you are the absolute worst. But his death was not in vain. He left me with this sick bike and also a recipe for a drink to celebrate his life with at the afterlife.
Shot of vodka on the rocks, lime juice, ginger beer, oh, and most importantly, a splash of love.
The drink he has described here is a Moscow Mule with a splash of love. This puts me in a tight spot, even though this is what he wanted, but the only variable that we really have to play with is which ginger beer do we use, and what is a splash of love? Let's start with the ginger beers. I ordered a bunch to test. No, not an exhaustive list, just what I could get in a reasonable amount of time. The one with the most oomph that I could get turned out to be Cock and Bull. Actually, Cock and Bull is super hot ginger beer, and that's what I was going for with this drink. So Cock and Bull, if you can get it, and you can, it's on Amazon, is the way to go. Link below, by the way, for that. You can get that on Amazon, link below, money for me. We're living in Night City now. I gotta scrape every penny I can get, right? Okay, edge running, very important business. So the thing that's left to consider is, well, what's a splash of love? The splash of love is the other real variable here. And a bunch of people online have interpreted that to be grenadine or something else that would carry a pinkish hue, and I get that. That makes perfect sense to me. It's just not my first instinct in cases like this. Instead, this is where my head's at, I ask myself, well, what does Jackie love? When Jackie says love, what does Jackie mean? What is a splash of love to Jackie? And I think the game makes a very clear point that Jackie loved Misty. And so then my brain jumped to Irish Mist, which I have right here, which is a honey liqueur that uses Irish whiskey as its base. Honey and ginger happen to also be pretty well established flavor combo, so I got to work on finding a ratio that would work. There's some really big flavors here because the ginger beer is loud and Irish Mist is not messing around. It has a lot of flavor in it. It's a bit over the top, to be honest. It's not like Irish Mist ain't fancy stuff. No offense to Irish Mist, but you know, it's 30% ABV, 35%. It's a rich liqueur blended with Irish whiskey, honey, and aromatic spices. It's got a very loud flavor. It is not great, to be perfectly honest. It can be cloyingly sweet. It can be a little artificial tasting, so it's difficult to work with, but it's also not if you balance it, it works really well. Once I figured out that 2-to-1 Cock and Bull to Irish Mist worked pretty well. You could still taste both of them. If you just take like 2 ounces of Cock and Bull and pour 1 ounce of Irish Mist in it, you taste both of them in tandem. That to me works pretty well. From there, it was just about how much do you want to thin that out with vodka and sharpen it up with lime. So let's make the drink. I'm gonna need my shaker. I'm gonna combine half an ounce of lime juice. I shot one episode before this. Everybody's been speculating lately like, oh, this is late in the filming day. That's true. It's always the last episode I filmed that day. But now that I shoot the show alone, it's very seldom that I shoot more than one episode a day, unfortunately. So this is one of the rare times when you're seeing me on the tail end of another episode. And let me tell you something, I'm feeling it. I have become an extreme lightweight in the recent months. All right, so half an ounce of lime juice, 1 ounce of vodka. Stoli is fine. 1 ounce of Irish mist. So I'm gonna shake that up and pour it over some rocks, and we will top that up with ginger beer. I suppose I should get my glass ready. I mentioned that CDPR altered the in-game look of the drink. They also sent me this special box, and in the box we have a glass from the afterlife. So I can think of nothing better to serve this in than this. It's just a rocks glass with afterlife, the logo from the bar kind of stenciled on it. Not stenciled, etched in like either laser or acid etched. Probably laser. One big, the other one I will crack. I'm gonna crack another ice cube into this. Should it be one big cube? No, I think it should be cracked ice. So take your rocks glass, which is actually pretty oversized in this case, perfect. Crack a cube in there. Some broken up ice, absolutely perfect. Throw it on your glorifier if you have one. Could I have served this over the ice that was shooken over? Sure. Could I have built it in the glass? Absolutely. All of that's totally valid. And then I want to top that up with some Cock and Bull ginger beer. I think 2 ounces is the way to go. Oh, it's a twist off. So I think 2 ounces of Cock and Bull. I mean, you could also eyeball this, you know. You could do it to taste. And that's it. That's a Jackie Wells. That is really refreshing. You get the honey and the ginger. They really interplay very well. You actually get the honey first. And then it goes away and it gets overtaken by ginger heat, and then it comes back, and then they kind of dance back and forth just like that. Vodka brings nothing to the table. Vodka's vodka. Lime, it needs a little acid. You know, a half an ounce is just right, I think, here. You know, you don't really taste lime, but that acid kind of helps the flavors work together. I think it's great. I think that the flavors work. It is definitely balanced. It has a little something in there that is unexpected. It's definitely recognizably a Moscow Mule. It's spicy, ginger, hot. Got some vodka in there. You get a little bit of lime. But the honey from the Irish mist runs throughout this flavored honey, this somewhat artificial taste. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, right? It's not like honey syrup. There's something else going on there. It's not unpleasant, but it is surprising, which is cool. It makes this drink kind of unique. Given the description, which is very restrictive, that we get from Jackie in the game, and I know you'd be complaining if I said, I'll do whatever I want. I don't know that I could come up with a better drink than this. I think it's very refreshing. It's extremely good. Not a bad way to go. Now here's the thing. Making a mule with a single modifier ingredient, the Irish mist, doesn't exactly satisfy me as a bartender, mixologist, and frankly, Jackie's not a bartender, is he? I don't know about you, but I don't assume that the drinks and foods on menus that are named for people were recipes that were invented by that person. Maybe it was something on the menu that they were known for ordering. Maybe it was a recipe designed with input from the namesake, or maybe it was just something like, you know what, I'm gonna name this after that guy, he's always here. With a place like the Afterlife, the drinks are all memorials to dead solos. So I feel like there's even more reason for those drinks to have been invented by bartenders to honor that person. You know, I don't know that you needed to be a regular at the Afterlife to get memorialized by a drink, okay? You could be a solo who had nothing to do with the place. It just wasn't your scene, but you were a big deal, and then you went down epically. They would have to make a drink for you, wouldn't they?
Guess dying's a small price to pay for going down in history.
I started thinking, how would I make a cocktail for Jackie? First thought I had was, well, let's think about tequila. And that's because after he dies, you go to his garage and you look for things to use as an offering at the ofrenda. and you find this very fancy bottle of tequila that he's never opened. And he was kind of like, coveted tequila, right? But I think that if Jackie likes tequila, that bottle would have been at least partially drank, and the drink he wanted for himself was based around vodka. So I kind of came back to what he was describing. So what about going the other way and just elevating that mule with love into something a bit more? And that's what I did. And let's talk about that right after this message from our sponsors. Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring this episode. You know, I built a new website. It's at hightechlow.life. That's a site that I built to support my weekly Cyberpunk Red actual play. Squarespace made it very, very easy and awesome. Setting up a stream of episodes and an RSS feed was simple, and look at the articles we were able to put in there. That's the good stuff. I find the blogging tool makes designing and scheduling posts and commenting and moderating easy to do. I love the way it can connect to my social media accounts. I am a terrible millennial. Just bad. Because unlike everybody else from my generation, I don't know how to code or do anything with web design. I am an incapable person when it comes to this stuff. And without Squarespace to make it pretty painless, I don't think I'd have any websites at all. Just wouldn't happen. So thank you, Squarespace, for turning me into Hacker Man. You have a website that you've been meaning to build, so head to squarespace.com, pick up a free trial. When you're ready to launch, you go to squarespace.com/howtodrink and get 10% off your first domain or website. Did you know that domains and websites are different things? They are. They are. Back to the show. But first, a quick addendum on that Johnny Silverhand recipe. I used a beer in it called Agave Maria from the Lost Abbey, which it turns out is in incredibly rare supply. I used it quite by chance. I went to a good liquor store I knew and bought pretty much everything I could get my hands on that was over 10% ABV and tested them with the recipe, and the agave was the best one in my opinion. Right now, as of time of filming this, it's basically impossible to get Agave Maria. It's a seasonal limited offering from the Lost Abbey, and hopefully at some point they will make some more. A lot of people have been asking me for alternative beers to use in that Silverhand. I haven't done like an exhaustive search or reworked the recipe, but the requirements of the drink are such that probably anything I find that does work is going to be really weird, rare stuff that would only be useful to a limited number of you anyway. To explain, my goal with the drink was to get the beer to float like a layer on top of the cocktail, and the only way to do this is to find a beer that's less dense than the stirred drink. And the surest route to achieving that was to look for beers that had outrageously high ABV, because alcohol is less dense than water and sugar and the rest, so as long as I can stir that drink down to something south of 13%, that Agave Maria is going to float, and it does. So if you're looking for a replacement, look for super high ABV stuff. Will a 10 or a 12% work? Probably. Will an 8% work? I would guess no. And then to match for flavor profile, Agave Maria is a wild ale that I'd say borders on a sour. It tasted strongly of cherries and dark chocolate, so use that as your guide. I miss that beer deeply. I can still remember that perfect beer. Delicious. And I'm sorry, it's gone. Let's talk about this Jackie Wells cocktail. I had thoughts about how to approach this, right? I'm gonna take his mule, his Moscow Mule with love, and I want to turn it into a cocktail. My first thought immediately is swap out the ginger beer for ginger syrup, because there's no way to work with this. It's not going to be a highball, and I want to make a cocktail, right? And I played with the ingredients a lot. The Irish mist, the Stoli, the ginger syrup, and some lime juice. I played with these ingredients a lot, and I tried a bunch of different ratios, and I found that the Irish mist was easily dominating the drink and making it kind of cloyingly sweet, okay? But I was really, frankly, I was just really committed to making it work. That splash of love is kind of central to the whole thing, and in my mind, I've decided that love is Misty, Misty is Irish Mist, even though I think she's Polish based on her last name. While working on this drink, I was working on one version of it, and it started to seem a lot like a sour, so I tested adding an egg white to it, as you do, and thought, hey, that's an improvement. We got something here. And then, kind of going backwards, I just tried taking the sour and turning it into a fizz, and at that point I was really torn because I really liked both of them. It was still being overpowered by the Irish Mist, though. And then I realized it's in the name, Mist. I put the Irish Mist into an atomizer and tried it like a spray of perfume over the drink, and it was just the right amount. And then I took it one step further. Jackie always talked about becoming a legend in the game, and also in Cyberpunk 2077, legendary is the highest tier quality of equipment you will find. So I'm gonna call this version of the drink the legendary Jackie Wells. So we're gonna need our shaker. Into our shaker goes 1 ounce of lime juice. There we go, come on baby. God, I want a daiquiri all of a sudden. So 1 ounce of lime juice into the shaker. 3/4 of an ounce of a strong ginger syrup. It's tricky with ginger syrup. The more ginger heat you can get into it, the better. It can be tricky. One thing you can try doing is literally just grinding the ginger, putting it into a juicer, and taking ginger juice and fortifying it straight up that way. I didn't do that here. 1.5 ounces of vodka. Now I need an egg white. Okay, we got an egg white, we got our drink in the shaker. You should always, with an egg white drink, you should always dry shake, right? There's something though called a reverse dry shake, and I've never used it on the show, and a lot of you have asked me, what do you think about the reverse dry shake? Why don't you do a reverse dry shake? I figured why not do it here? I have nothing against it, let's just do it. So what I'm gonna do is actually put ice into my shaker, a big whole one, and the other one I'll crack. Put the whole thing together. Then I'm gonna strain my drink from one side to the other. Strain it into itself. Get rid of everything in my shaker. And shake it again. Now we'll do the dry shake. Take a fizz glass, which is like a highball, but a little bit narrower if you have it. Otherwise, any kind of a tall highball should work. In a perfect world, I should be able to pour this unstrained, but I heard a little bit of ice still in there, so I'll strain it. And pour this straight into that, no ice. All right, we're gonna make some seltzer. This is a little more frozen than I want it to be. I hope this is all right. Using my iDrinkMate. Should eat a lot of CO2 at this temperature. Now carefully sneak this club soda down the side. There's no ice in a fizz. If you're familiar with the iconic look of a Ramos gin fizz with its big towering thick head, we're not gonna get that here. You need heavy cream to cause that to form, but we should get a nice bit of loft beyond the rim of the glass as it develops for a few seconds. So here we go. Went over the top a little bit, but I think that's okay. I think that's very romantic looking. Maybe not romantic, but very iconic, right? Now, for the final step, load up a misto with Irish mist and pump it up. A misto or an atomizer like I have right here, right? And actually this might be even better, because it produces a more fine mist. Let's see. There you go. It smells like, immediately, like toasted marshmallows. I love it. And that's the drink. Throw a straw in it. And here we go. This is a legendary Jackie Wells. So good. Ooh, it's so good. It's subtle. It is ginger and lime and silk, and the ginger is really well balanced here. In this version, it's a lot of ginger, which is delicious. This is much more nuanced. This is balanced and a little sweet and certainly sour. And it's got that heat from the ginger, and it's got this aroma of honey and toasted marshmallows that infects the whole thing. It is great. Now you will, as it sits here, it'll develop this, the egg white is gonna separate into a head. I think it's worth it to stir it all back together with your straw, because you want that combined. And you get this like really wonderful, silky but foamy mouthfeel and texture with this effervescent light ginger. Ah, it's good. This is very good. I kind of love that. That's really good. It's a really light, easy to drink. I mean, I finished it basically. Very easy to drink that I think is answering to all of Jackie's requirements. I'm pretty pleased with this one, to be honest. I feel like I did an all right one here. How are your experiences with Cyberpunk 2077 going? I'm enjoying myself, but I've also got a pretty serious gaming PC courtesy of Ironside, so maybe that's a factor there for what I understand. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend that there's not issues with that game. There's some things I don't love about it. narrative things mainly. I mean, bugs are bugs. I would prefer that they don't exist, but they're bugs. It's not about the intention of the designers. There are things that, like, I don't like leveled equipment. I think that's just lame. I'm not a fan of having like 6 hours of prologue personally, or a montage. Like, I really, I don't know. It's not my style really. I like to have control over it. I would like my background and choices to matter more. I guess it's sort of more of an action first-person shooter than an RPG though, so that's something to keep in mind. Like, you don't really have any control over, there's no stat for dialogue options really, right? Like to role play a character. So it's, I don't know. It's fun. Is it perfect? No. Is it buggy as hell? Kinda. It doesn't bother me as much as a lot of other things I've seen though, so. Well, I'd love to hear about your experiences with Cyberpunk 2077 or Cyberpunk Red, the role-playing game that I play on Twitch with my friends. If you have any thoughts about that kind of stuff, TTRPG stuff. And I hope you'll see me over on Twitch at Greg from HTD. You could also check out my Instagram at HowToDrink with a number 2 in the middle. You can check out my Twitch at HowToDrink with a number 2 in the middle. And if you want to see the parts of this episode that were too long or too raunchy or too weird or too niche to go for the main edit, those end up on my Patreon at patreon.com/howtodrink. Thank you guys for watching. I'll be back soon with another episode. Until that time, I would advise you to chip in, you chumbas. Keep it real. Run the edge. Very enjoyable. And gone. And check out my other episodes of How to Drink. Since I've been making this show for 5 years, maybe you missed the Johnny Silverhand or some other cool video game stuff that I've done on the show. Please watch. I need your validation. All I need is your validation. It's a song that I wrote on this occasion. I need your validation. Tell me that I'm worth something at all out here on the internet for you all. Yeah.